Hello, kiddos. Oh, see the super beauty, no? Such a cute little princess. Shall we know her story? Let's go. This story name is Sleeping Beauty. Long ago, there lived a king and queen who said every day, "If only we had a child." But for a long time, they had none. One day, when the queen was bathing, a frog crept out of the water onto the land and said to her, "Your wish shall be fulfilled before a year has gone by. You shall have a daughter." And since frogs are such magical creatures, it was no surprise that before a year had passed, the queen gave birth to a baby girl. The girl was so pretty that the king could not contain his joy. Yeah, true. See, look at their face. They're so happy to have a beautiful baby girl. He ordered a great feast and invited all his friends, family, and acquaintances. He also invited the fairies in order that they might be kind and bless the child. There were 13 of them in his kingdom, but as he had only 12 gold plates for them to eat from, one of them had to be left out. No one was saddened by this, as the 13th fairy was known to be cruel and spiteful. At the end of the amazing feast, each fairy presented the baby girl with a magic gift. One gave virtue, second gave beauty, the third gave riches, and so on with everything in the world that anyone can wish for. When 11 of them had presented their gifts, the 13th suddenly appeared. She was angry and wanted to avenge herself for not being invited. Without hesitation, she called out in a loud voice, "The king's daughter shall, in her 15th year, prick herself with a spindle and fall down dead." Then, without another word, she turned round and left the room. Everyone was shocked, and the queen fell to the floor sobbing, but the 12th fairy, whose good wish still remained unspoken, quietly stepped forward. Her magic could not undo the curse, but she could soften it. So she said, "It shall not be death, but a deep sleep of 100 years, into which the princess shall fall." Oh, that means the princess will, instead of dying, she will sleep 100 years? Oh, let's see. The king, determined to prevent the curse, gave orders that every spindle in the whole kingdom should be destroyed. No one in the kingdom was allowed to tell the princess of the curse that had been placed upon her, for they did not want her to worry. Over the years, the gifts of the fairies came true one by one. The princess grew up to be beautiful, modest, good natured, and wise, that everyone who saw her could not help but love her. It happened that on the very day when she was 15 years old, the princess woke up early. She was up so early in the morning that she realized everyone else was still sleeping. So she wandered about the whole place, looking at the rooms and halls as she pleased. And at last she came to an old tower. She climbed up the narrow, winding staircase and reached a little door. A rusty key was in the lock, and she turned it to the door sprang open. In a little room sat an old woman with a spindle, busily spinning her flax. "Good morning, Granny," said the princess. "What are you doing?" I am spinning, said the old woman. What is the thing that rattles round so merrily? Asked the princess. And she took the spindle and tried to spin too. But she had scarcely touched the spindle when it pricked her finger, and in the very moment when she felt the prick, she fell down upon the bed that stood there and lay in a deep sleep. Oops, I think the curse has become true. This sleep extended over the whole palace. The king, queen, and the servants had all started their morning routines, and right in the midst of them fell asleep too. The horses in the stable, dogs in the yard, pigeons on the roof, and the flies on the wall all fell asleep. Even the roof, the flies on the wall, even the fire on the earth became quiet and still. And the kitchen maid who sat with the chicken before her, ready to pluck its feathers, also fell asleep. See, everyone are sleeping. The wind died down, and on the trees in front of castle, not a leaf moved again. A thorny hedge began to grow up round the castle. Every year it grew higher and higher until at last nothing could be seen of the sleeping castle. But the story of beautiful Sleeping Beauty, as the king's daughter was called, went about the country. From time to time, many princes came and tried to force their way through the hedge and into the castle, but the thorns held fast together as if they were alive, and young princes who were entangled in them could not get loose again and died a pitiful death. Sad. After many years, a very handsome young prince came to the country and heard an old man tell the tale of castle which stood behind the thorny hedge and beautiful princess who had been asleep within for 100 years. He had heard too from his grandfather that many princes had already come, and many princes had already come and had tried to get through the horny hedge, but none had succeeded and had been caught in it and died. The young prince said, I am not afraid. I must go and see this sleeping beauty. The old man tried to persuade him not to go, but the prince wouldn't listen. By this time, the 100 years had just passed, and the day had come when Sleeping Beauty has to wake up. When the prince approached the thorny hedge, which was covered the beautiful large horses, it parted on its own and let him pass unhurt. Then it closed again behind him like a hedge. In the castle yard, the prince saw the horses and the dogs lying asleep. On the roof sat the motionless pigeons. When he went into the house, the flies were asleep on the walls, and the servants also asleep in the halls. Near the throne lay the king and the queen, sleeping peacefully beside each other. In the kitchen, the fire on the hearth was still, and the maid was sitting by chicken which she was going to pluck. All was so quiet that he could hear his own breathing. He went on farther and at last came to tower. He went upstairs and opened the door into the little room where the beautiful princess was sleeping. Oh wow, really? There she lay, she so lovely that he could not turn his eyes away. He stooped down and gave her a kiss. But as soon as he kissed her, Sleeping Beauty opened her eyes and smiled at him. They went down together throughout the castle. Everyone and everything woke up and looked at each other with astonished eyes. A few days later, the castle that had lain in silence for so long now rang with the sound of singing, music, and happy laughter as the prince and Sleeping Beauty were married, and the two lived happily ever after. Wow, such a beauty and a great prince, right? I love this story. Hope you also love the story. See you next story. Bye bye.